Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love talking about? Games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 4,858 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. It is the last week before the Switch 2. And if you're like me and have stupidly thrown money at a system that has one game that's going to be out on launch that's very overpriced, but I just can't stop myself because I'm a Nintendo fanboy, then we're going to have a fun week. But if you're still looking to pick up some Switch games to have in preparation of the Switch 2, well, then this video here is for you. And I think this is the 10th time we've talked about 10 Switch games. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. If that sounds interesting to you, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, the first game we're going to talk about here today is the last of the HD 2D games. I believe I've talked about all of the other ones. Octopath 1 and 2, Triangle Strategy, Live Alive. The other one to come out, which was last year's release, is one I have not yet played, because it's the third game in a series that is hugely popular that I've just never really gotten into. But I am looking forward to playing this one. I have played the first game in the series, I played the 11th game in the series, and that game is Dragon Quest III, the HD 2D remake. And this was done lovingly, with so much care, though there was some controversy about them changing some of the character designs and things like that, which, yeah, I'm bummed when things get changed, but it's also not going to be enough to stop me from buying a game that has that incredible art style. So what am I going to say, guys? I'm a patsy for that art style. If anything comes out with it, I need to get it. They announced they were doing Dragon Quest 1 and 2, which also, by the way, we know these as Dragon Warrior. So this is Dragon Warrior 3. They're re-releasing Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 with the same art style. That's coming out later this year. I pre-ordered that as well. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series, just because I'm more of a Final Fantasy person. I love turn-based RPGs, but the behind-the-backness in these RPGs, I just don't get down with, as well as, yes, I know it's blasphemy. Akira Toriyama is a legend. Everyone loves his art style. I'm just not a huge fan of the art style. What can I say? I don't, like, if you ask people who, like my wife, like, yeah, I look like I'm an anime loving person. I love Fire Emblem and all that, but I'm really kind of picky and choosy with some of those more obtuse art styles, and I'm just not a huge fan of it. So that's the other reason why I wanted to get it in this iteration, is because also looking back on the NES days, it had a charm to it, versus in Dragon Quest 11, I didn't care much for it. And that I probably ticked off a lot of you guys. I'm sorry, but that's just my honest opinion. But yeah, one to pick up, back to the point of the video, one to definitely pick up, as this, the Dragon Quests always become very collectible. And this is just, it's so cool. I love the HD 2D games. Anyways, whatever. Alright, moving on to the next game. This one is interesting because it's got a new game in the news that isn't been going over too well, to be honest. Like, people say it's good, but looking into it, they removed the feature in it that, for myself, brought me to this franchise for the first time ever, which might come as a shock again as I'm ticking off all of you in this video. But the game we're talking about is Doom 2016, the Nintendo Switch release. The fact that this is playing on the Switch when it came out was such a shock. Like, this was it's kind of like the Resident Evil 2 running on the N64, as how did they take that game that was a cutting-edge graphical powerhouse onto the Switch? As well as it came on the Switch, I want to say within the first year, like 2017, back before the Switch had a ton of physical releases, which was one of the reasons why I picked this up. But the new Doom removes the glory kills, which the glory kills was the thing that really hooked me into this iteration of Doom. Whereas I was not a huge fan of Doom 64, I didn't play any of the other Dooms, and then the original Doom, yes, I didn't play the original Doom while it was current, and I still haven't beaten it. And to be honest, I like it, I like what it does, but I'm not a huge Doom person. And so when this one came out, and it was so over the top violent. It really it threw kind of a wrench into the works where every other first-person shooter or third-person shooter in the mid-2010s was a cover-based shooter where you would take pot shots, hide, recover your health, pot shots, hide, recover your health. This was a game that reintroduced a health bar, but not only that, encouraged you to run around like crazy. And then the glory kills, the thing that Doom the Dark Ages removed, was an ability where you would execute the enemies and gain health out of doing it, which also was pretty much ripped straight out of the Space Marine game, because that's how that one worked, the original Space Marine on 360. So I'm thinking maybe they removed it because Space Marine 2 came out and they were trying to distance themselves from it. I don't see the logic. It's like taking those moments in gaming that don't cost a lot on the developer side or on the gameplay or anything like that, but they make such a visceral impact on the person playing. To remove that is case in point what is wrong with this industry, is that a decision like that could be so adverse to the gamer would be made for no reason. I still don't understand. I still understand how bear in mind, I haven't played Doom the Dark Ages, so I'm talking out of turn here, but that's my favorite part of this. That's the favorite part about coming to this game, is those little moments, those repeatable gameplay hooks that just have you coming. One of the things about Clair Obscur I love so much is the way the soundtrack is integrated into the game. When you beat an encounter, the song resolves in a way that no matter where you're at in the song, makes sense. And once again, it's not a huge thing. They didn't have to do that. They could have just kept going with the song, but when you put it in there, it's a low effort thing that pays big dividends on the gameplay experience. And so, not saying the glory kills is low effort. I'm sure it's a lot of effort, but I just don't understand. But that's a good one. Pick up it on the Switch. It does run pretty well considering it's on the Switch, and it's one of those, just like I said, it's one of those oddities where, like, how did they get this to do it? And the fact that post this game, they've had a lot of games come out that were made for the Switch at the same time as they released, and they didn't run nearly as well. What are you going to do? All right, next one. This originally was a PC-only release. Now, there was a time where I was a big fan of this YouTuber, and then kind of just tapered off eventually as things got a little stale, though I still love what they represent and what they've done for the gaming YouTube space. And that game is the Angry Video Game Nerd Game 1 and 2. So I actually really liked the first game. I beat it on stream way back in the day when I had a computer that could stream, and I was on that final boss for longer than I care to admit, though I did end up beating it, so that was cool. Though afterwards I went back and everyone's like, yeah, that boss wasn't that hard. I'm like, oh god. Guess I'm no gaming god. The second one takes more, and also these games kind of take inspiration from classic NES games. So the first Angry Video Game Nerd, there's like a Castlevania level, a Jaws level. These kind of, like, just, it takes inspiration from both the show, but also the levels themselves will play off like games or use power-ups or lookalikes. And so the first game had that Castlevania or Ghouls and Ghosts going from the left-hand side to the right. Or no, it was more Mega Man because you could choose the level. It's been a while. It's more Mega Man because you could choose the levels. The second game has a overworld map reminiscent of, say, Mario 3 with the little squares. And I didn't enjoy it as much because I liked having more of a linear through line instead of feeling like, oh, there's places on this map that are just a waste of time versus others that are not. But all in all, just fun platforming, very tough, very hard. Boss fights are challenging. And the first one I still think is better than the second one, but I wanted to have it physically, and this was actually a gift from my wife for Christmas a few years ago when she learned that when you buy things on limited run games, which once again, it expected 6 months later to 7 months later, so I think it was she put like a note in a piece of paper in a present that said this is coming in like April. But yeah, good game, pick it up. Alright, here's another one that I saw from another YouTuber's recommendation. I'm going to admit I'm not super crazy on it, but I'm still going to bring it up because you might be, much like that game Gunborg I talked about before. And this one is Huntown. And Huntown is your classic 2D side-scrolling run-and-gun style game. You can play as one of 3 different characters. They each have a different moveset. So one's got more of a machine gun, shotgun, laser thing. Like, so there's a robot, there's a girl, and there's a guy, and then each one of them has a slightly different loadout, but they behave in the world the same way. And you can change between the characters at will throughout the game. And it was a little soulless in my opinion, as far as I mean, not that I want a story. I always talk about how I don't care about it. But this one just seemed very generic, but the gameplay is very tight. The level design is interesting enough. There's a lot of gameplay here if you do enjoy it. There's a lot of little secrets, little things here and there you can find. And the 3 different characters play different enough that it is a different experience. It's not just playing as red guy or blue guy in Contra. Like, each one of these is slightly different in the way they play. I just didn't find it all that enjoyable, though some of the boss fights are pretty intense. Each level has sort of a through line where you get into the zone where there's a new gang, either the hockey gang or the fire people gang or this or that, and then your job is to turn it down. And I think maybe the storyline is what made it worse for me. If I had just gone from level to level without seeing anything, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. And then the second boss, though, the hockey boss, I will see, the guy who kind of ends up looking like the dude from Splatterhouse, that was a fun fight. I will say, that was a pretty dang fun fight. Some of the other ones get a little annoying, but give it a shot. It's a cheap game. I think I got it for like $20. But yeah, that's one that's definitely worth checking out. All right, this is one I picked up from Best Buy because it was there, or Walmart because I saw it. And I just, it's another limited run release, but I saw it somewhere else, and that is the Jurassic Park Collection. And what can I say? I'm a classic gamer from the 90s, the golden age of gaming, if you want to AI this script. And I played a lot of these Jurassic Park games when they were current. So the Super Nintendo game, I played and beat that dang thing on a Super Nintendo without having a save system because they didn't think we needed it. The Genesis one I rented and played. I did not know there was a Rampage edition. Did not know there was one on the NES. And then I remember seeing Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues, on the Super Nintendo. I picked it up. It's a 2-player co-op run and gun game. Me and my dad tried playing it, could never get past the second level, and to this day, I still consider it this hidden gem game, or this, you always see all these games that are sequels that become wildly expensive. No one ever knew about them. I always expect that to be Jurassic Park 2 on the Super Nintendo, and yet it never is. No one talks about it. The game is not expensive, probably because it's so brutally hard and just not that good. But there's other sequels that get expensive that aren't that good. But anyways, I digress. All of these are on this collection. I got it for about $25, I want to say. And they're just fun. They also have the Game Boy versions of I guess the first game and then the second, though they're all played different. So even though there's a Jurassic Park on the Genesis, Jurassic Park on Super Nintendo, they're completely different games. One lets you play as a raptor, and it's just a fun series. They're by no means 10 out of 10 games. They're all flawed games, some that you would rent. Though the original Super Nintendo Jurassic Park is very interesting, where it has a top-down perspective, and then you go into these houses and get a first-person perspective that's very reminiscent to some early PC gaming, dungeon crawl, first-person, that kind of thing. And you can get lost very easily, but once you kind of figure out how to play Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, it's a pretty fun game. I gotta say, it's a pretty fun game. And I used to always watch Dr. Grant getting eaten by the T-Rex. That was always enjoyable because there's some real tension in it too. Alright, moving on here. So another collection, because we're just talking about collections nonstop here. So I've mentioned the Castlevania Advance Collection, I've mentioned the Contra Collection, I've mentioned the Domina Collection. So I probably should just talk about the original Castlevania Collection. This has 8 games on it. Every single one of the classic Castlevanias you can think of outside of Haunted Castle. So you have Castlevania 1, 2, 3, Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. You have the Genesis Bloodlines version. And then the thing that's very cool is that they also include not only Belmont's Revenge and Castlevania Adventure, the 2 Game Boy games, but there's a third game called Kid Dracula that is not really a Castlevania game, but it's tangentially so. Kind of like the chibi version of Splatterhouse they made. Well, this is sort of a chibi Castlevania type thing where you play as Kid Dracula. And it's also a very, very expensive Game Boy game, so having a way to play it is super helpful. And all of these games are phenomenal. Maybe not Castlevania Adventure, but all the other ones are absolute necessities to play. I had my wife play the original Castlevania as part of our Noob Gamer series, where I had her fight Dracula with no experience in the game. And then once she beat the first form, the final form trope started. It's fun. Give that a watch. That's a fun one. But all these are so intense, and I love them. I have not played the 16-bit versions, though, if you can believe it. I played Rondo of Blood, which that's not on this either. So I guess that'd be the other classic one that's on. But I think that's on... actually, it may not be. So yeah, there is none with... So they can make another one. They can make another one. They can have the Castlevania Rondo collection. Put, like, Castlevania Legends and the other ones they've left out. But yeah. Castlevania Adventure, pick that one up. Or not Adventure, Castlevania Collection, pick that one up if you want to have some great... Like, the Switch is so good with that, where they have so many older games that were re-released on it that you can play. And where I'm not a huge person who likes to play on the go, the fact that I can play Doom 2016 on the go if I wanted to and not have to deal with a Steam Deck that it may have BIOS issues or it won't run the file or something, I enjoy. And if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about with PCs, it's because I don't. All right, last few right here. I'm just going to bring this one up because this is just an absolute no-brainer, but at a certain point in these kind of videos, you got to bring up the no-brainers just so you can talk about them. And that game is Super Mario Odyssey. And man, was this a return to form for Nintendo as far as the 3D Mario games go? And it's funny when you say that because, you know, Mario 3D World, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, Mario Sunshine, they're all very good games, but in my opinion, none of them really captured the essence of Mario 64. And what Mario Odyssey did is it finally felt like, okay, we're still in the same ballpark as Mario 64, and it feels so good. You don't have the jetpack, you don't have gravity mechanics, you don't have floating islands that feel like little slices of levels that have been turned into 3D. No, it's just a persistent world. You can go and find all of these different, I think they're not called shines, moons, that's what they're. All these different moons you can find. You're traveling to different locales via a fun mechanic, as well as throwing the hat and taking over enemies. Once again, how does Nintendo do it with these innovative ideas that take a simple gameplay design, a simple gameplay concept, and then have so much value and replay value out of it, just exploring and going around? Like being a T-Rex as Mario, you think on paper it sounds like you've jumped the shark, but it makes sense. And yeah, you jump the shark, but it's enjoyable watching it land. And the whole game is so fun. The New Donk City level, I know a lot of people were just clamoring over. I was kind of about it. Like, yeah, I've played so many open world games where, yeah, having an open world cityscape in a Mario game is cool and all, but I wasn't, you know, drooling over it. Though I will say the Donkey Kong Bonanza level kind of thing where you're going through all of this 2D versus 3D, and then you get to the end, and like that level, that experience in New Donk City is incredible. That's probably, that alone is what makes it so S tier, in my opinion, for this particular game, is that moment that takes place within there. But overall, just a really cool game. I hope that we have a sequel to this coming out and they don't go into a different direction again. My only criticism with it is just I really liked the way Mario 64 would have you have targeted missions within levels, find the star, kicked out to the stop, and then go back in. This kind of started with Yooka-Laylee and Banjo-Kazooie, where you would be able to find all of the stars within the same iteration of the map. And I don't know, maybe this is my old schoolness of liking levels. I don't always want to be in the same persistent open world. And yeah, I get it's annoying where if you're doing two things simultaneously, I've done the 8 red coins and I got this, I don't want to be kicked back out to the map and then have to do the same thing over again. But I also enjoyed how sometimes there'd be a slightly different take on the level or a slightly different thing that was happening, depending on which of those stars you were going after. Anyways, Mario Odyssey, great game. Pick it up. Alright, and another one that is a re-release on the Switch that's getting a little harder to find. This is in line with kind of the Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. This was the other one of those classic computer RPG series where it was released. And that was Planescape Torment and Icewind Dale. And I actually went through and I was playing through Icewind Dale on the channel. I got all the way to the 5th chapter. I was save scumming galore, which luckily the Switch allowed me to do because these games are difficult. You create your own party, and then you basically give them commands, much like in an RTS, to go and fight. And then they just do the fighting, but you can get overwhelmed very quickly. You can overwhelm the enemies very quickly. And it's hard. It's not like classic turn-based RPGs where you can come into an encounter and be underleveled and then just go grind and be better. And these ones, it's a lot harder. At least I find it a lot harder to have that level of patience. Though it does have some cool value and it's fun exploring, and I really did enjoy playing it. Unfortunately, I got to a spot where something despawned that I needed to progress the story, and that was it for my playthrough. I mean, I was very, very far into the game, and I just got stuck. And for some more deep lore on the channel, I was actually giving away a copy of Maneater once I beat this game, but then because I didn't beat the game, the contest went to nothing, and I've been waiting all these years to see if anyone ever brought that up, and no one has. And I was going to say, hey, if you bring up that discrepancy, I would have sent you the game. So we'll see. I have a PS4 copy of Maneater that was sealed, though my cat ripped into it, much like he ripped into my copy of Octopath Traveler 2 Collector's Edition. So now it's slightly unsealed. But yeah, we'll figure out a way to give that game away, because I'll talk about Maneater another day. That's a really ridiculously fun game. But yes, Planescape Torment, Icewind Dale has all the DLCs for each. I have not played Planescape Torment, but if you like that not tabletop, but that classic computer RPG-ness before it sort of went into the Oblivion realm and changed what it meant to be a Western RPG, that's what these games are. Alright, last two. So let's go ahead and talk about the one that I was completely unaware of, had a physical copy that included both the first game and the second game. And I'll even say I was not a huge fan of the first game, having bought it digitally when it was only digital. It is more or less a spiritual successor to the Advance Wars series, and this was before Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. But there was a lot of people who did enjoy it. I didn't like it all that much, but I also didn't have much experience with Advance Wars, being more on the Fire Emblem side. And then they released a sequel, and I didn't hear anything about it, but still, there was a physical copy on Play Asia. It is only an Asian-only release, but there's English on the cart, and that is Wargroove 1 and 2. And this was only like $20, so I was picking up some gets on Play Asia the other day, and I needed to get up to a certain amount for the free shipping, and I saw that one. I'm like, throw it in. Why not? I didn't know that I was buying the Sero version, because it said it had English on it, but there you go. I think there might be an official PAL release of this, but it's a lot more expensive, and it's the same damn game, and it's got the English. Anyways, but it's got Wargroove 1 and 2, and these, like I say, play a lot like Advance Wars. So you're on a map, you have a troop that will do a certain amount of damage while it's healthy, and then as you take damage, you do less damage. So that's the kind of thing that I dislike in these sort of turn-based games. Banner Saga had a similar thing to that, and it makes it so that you have to be extremely judicious with what your placement is, because in some games you can get damaged, then heal it, and it's not a big deal. So you can have a lot of guys who can tank big hits and be as break points for your squad. In these kind of games, though, where when someone gets hit, then they are less effective, it just makes it so you got to be even more tactical, and I'm not the hugest fan of that, to be honest. I'm not the hugest fan of that. I'm not saying I don't like it, I didn't like it that much here, so I'm wanting to give it another shot. That's why I picked this up, and I wanted to check out the sequel as well. And the last game we're going to talk about today is kind of another no-brainer, but it's really fun on the Switch, and it is something that you guys should pick up, and that is the Dark Souls Remastered. So this is so funny. For a long part of my life, I knew that Demon Souls was really beloved, and then everything I found said Dark Souls was not as good. Now, bear in mind, this was 2011, 2012. This was before Dark Souls 2 came out, and that narrative was everywhere. And at the time, I did not have a PS3, and I really wanted one, and I knew I was going to get one eventually, and I did not want to play the lesser game, which obviously people don't really feel that way anymore, but there was a lot of it then who did. And so I didn't pick this up. And then of course the second one came out, the games blew up, everyone loves it. I picked up Bloodborne, it's funny, I picked up Bloodborne and I picked up Sekiro, and Elden Ring, so I played everything besides the mainline Dark Souls series, Demon Souls as well, and then finally I got Dark Souls, so I got Dark Souls Remastered when it came out, and my buddy Rewind Mike was a huge fan of it. I did stream a little bit of this one too. I streamed the part where I went through that orange area with all the walkways. I can't remember the name of it, but the Dark Souls fans, that they know it's like some legendary area. And it's a very cool world, a very cool map of emergent gameplay. You know, there's secret areas you can miss, this and that. It's the same Souls-like formula, but it plays really well on the Switch. And they did a great job porting it over there. And it's just fun. It is fun to see how contained the world is, how when you open up something in area A, it opens up in area B, and there's a lot in there, but it's the type of game it is not a game that you can take a break from, and it's hard at this point in my life, even back then when I was playing it, to really have that level of dedication in a game all the time, because if something happens or if something comes up, if something changes, then you lose it. And that's kind of what happened with me with this game, is that either I picked up something else or I got invested in something else, and then I came back to it and I had no idea where I was. There was a bunch of these doors that were golden glowing. Didn't know how to get in there. I remember there was one fight, a wolf holding a sword that I had not completed. Could not remember how to get there. And it got a little overwhelming to kind of catch back up. And at that point, it's kind of like, well, let's start the game over. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have time to start the game over. I have all these other games I want to play. And so it sat there and I haven't beaten it. But that's neither here nor there. Really fun game. Pick it up on the Switch, and there you have it. That is another 10 games that you should go out and buy immediately before the Switch 2 comes out and raises all the prices. Yeah, I know it's not, but still, go pick them up. These are good games. Thank you guys again for another wonderful week. Thank you all for the well wishes. Thank you for constantly leaving comments, likes, suggestions. I almost made this video the 3DS games to get video, but then I figured with the Switch 2 coming out, I probably should do another Switch video this week. But let me know if 3DS sounds interesting to you guys. I really can only do one of those because I don't have that many games, but it would be interesting to talk out, and I hope you like turn-based tactical games, because there's a lot of Fire Emblems on the 3DS. Anyways, as a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.